Hello Big Besties, welcome to today's video. If you are not new here, then you know that I skipped my September wrap-up, so this video is going to be a culmination of all the books that I read in September and October. We do have a lot to get through. I've been doing my wrap-ups, comparing my opinions to Goodreads, like reading 5 and 1-star reviews, and you guys have really enjoyed that, and it is a lot of fun. But I always need change. That also takes a very long time, so I thought it would be fun to do something different, and I thought long and hard about this. So we are going to play the dating game book edition. There is a show that just came out, or a movie, I don't know, it's one or the other. I have not watched it yet, so do not go watch that show and say, ooh, Jordan recommended this. I'm just saying that I saw a preview and it has Anna Kendrick in it, who's one of my favorite actresses, and it's a true story adaptation of that old dating show game that I'm going to be kind of emulating here in this video, where this girl was on that show and ended up choosing a serial killer as her date. So that's crazy. The way that we're gonna do this is, I think, so fun, and I think it will be entertaining. If you've never seen the show, someone is dating, like speed dating, 3 different people. So I broke down the books that I read into groups of 3, and I will reveal the books that I'm talking about after each 3 have been discussed. So in the comments, you get to pick per category based on my descriptions, based on the date, that if you were to go on a date with this book, this is where you'd go, and just kind of fun things like that. This is gonna be quick. It's like speed dating. I'm not gonna be giving like huge details of these books. I'm gonna give my opinion, my star rating, and then just some like fun details. Basically trying to convince you to choose that book. Or honestly, if I didn't like the book, I might be guiding you not to choose that book. And then you can just enjoy the process, or in the comments, feel free to be like, all right, category 1, I choose book 1, book 2, book 3, whatever book you would choose. And then I will reveal what these books were. I think like it would be really interesting if I didn't see a cover, if I didn't know the title. You'll kind of be able to guess the genre based on the description, but I wonder what books I would actually be like, ooh, that sounds really good, if I didn't have all these other things pulling at me. Anyways, if this still makes no sense, I think you'll get the hang of it, and I hope that you enjoy. I hope this is like a really fun way for you to watch my wrap up. As always with a game show, there is a host, so I have a special guest host for you guys. Just kidding, it's me. I'm the host. Welcome to the dating game. Book number 1. If you chose to go on a date with this book, you would probably go to a basketball game. You're following a high school girl who doesn't feel like she really fits in and is kind of shy, but then she befriends the basketball team. That's all that happens in book 1. This one is part of a series. I didn't rate this book because I don't typically rate this genre. I'm throwing really huge hints your way, but it was a very fun, very cute, and easy read. If that is your thing, then book 1 is the perfect book for you. And now book number 2, let's just say book number 2 is gonna take you for a wild ride. It's gross. It's disturbing. If you watched my last vlog, then you should already know what book I'm talking about. This one is about a person who loves books and loves to read books. And she gets very upset that her favorite author killed off her favorite character. And she didn't appreciate that very much, so she decides to take matters into her own hands. You're gonna have in this book some very disturbing elements, but if you like that, then you will love this book. If you were gonna go on a date with this book, well, in the nicest way, I would say you'll go to see a horror movie. In a not so nice way, you just might end up deceased. So if that sounds like your type of a book, book number 2 will be it for you. This is so cringe. Book number 3 in our very first round. Personally, I loved this book. This book surprised me by how much I liked it, so if that matters, if my opinion matters, this would be the book I would choose. You are gonna laugh. You are gonna swoon. This was definitely one of the most fun books I've ever read. It's not gonna have like a ton of drama to it. In fact, if you like just a slow, cozier type of book that is not realistic though, then this is perfect for you. There's pet dragons, funny side characters, there's a very swoony, slow burn romance. Simply put, this book will entertain you. And if you were gonna go on a date with this book, your date would probably take you into their secret lair. Make your picks in the comments or just keep watching. I'll give you a moment. Okay, your moment is done. If you picked book number 1, then you should read Waiting for Spring. This is, in fact, a manga. It was super cute sports romance, and I think it's definitely worth trying if you like manga. If you picked book number 2, I'm so sorry to say that you will be reading Misery. I think I'm landing at like 3 stars for this, and that's only because I think it was creative genius. However, it was not my cup of tea, but if you picked this one, I hope it goes better for you than it did for me. And the last book that I personally would highly recommend, and if you picked this one, I don't think you'll be disappointed, that is Assistant to the Villain. Look how pretty this book is. I loved this one. It was like 4.75 stars for me. Book number 1 is going to be for the vampire girlies. If you like a darker fantasy, you like vampires, you love world building and magic system, then book number 1 is a great option for you. If you're gonna go on a date with book number 1, you'd probably go into the human realm and ignore the fact that you are not normal at all, or you'd go flying. Book number 2 is gonna be perfect for someone who loves like the spooky fairy tale fantasy type of a book. This one is following a girl who is a healer. She gets adopted by a god and kind of brought into this like royal family, but she can like sense if someone's about to die or not. There is a lot of loss and grief to this book, but it is going to give you such good gothic fantasy vibes. So if that is your thing, or if you liked the book Belladonna, then I think you will love this one. And if you were going to go on a date with this book, well, you'd probably just light a bunch of candles and watch them burn. And book number 3 is going to be for the romance girlies. This one is following a single mom who is mourning the loss of the love of her life and kind of dealing with her own grief, but she's also really found love again. She's just kind of running from it. This story actually was very dear to my heart because of how my husband and I met, but this girl's pushing this guy away, he's pursuing her, he's loving her from a distance. If you like all of those types of things, like a deep, really human, heartfelt romance at that college age, to be specific, then you will love book number 3. And if you were going to go on a date with this book, you would definitely strap your kiddo on and go to a football game. So I hope that you voted for what book you would choose in that round. Let's reveal what books these were. So book number 1 was The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Now, you do need to read Serpent and the Wings of Night before this. This is book 2, but again, if you liked all of those vibes, you will enjoy this series. I gave this one 4 stars, maybe even 3.5. I didn't like it as much as I liked the first book. Also be warned, there is language in this one, like a good amount of language, and just 1 or 2 open door scenes. So if you picked this book, at least know those things going into it. But otherwise, I highly recommend. Book number 2, if that was your pick, then you're gonna go out with The 13th Child. This is great for your fall reading. So you still have time if you get to this soon. This is the newest book by Erin Craig, and I probably gave it like 3.75, almost 4 stars. There was a couple things in it that I just didn't really like, but overall I think it was a really fun one and like perfect gothic fantasy. If that's your thing, I know you will like this book. If you picked book number 3, then you will be reading Promise Me Not. However, this is also a sequel, so you do need to read Say You Swear first, which again, I think Say You Swear was a lot better than this book. Even though I really enjoyed it, I did talk to some friends who did not enjoy it quite as much as I did because I related to this story, whereas for other people I think it is moving a little slow, and I can totally see that. It was strictly just like because I related to it that it worked more for me, but again, if you are a sports romance girly or just like really love dramatic romance stories, you should like this book. And I think that for this one I landed at also like 4 stars. Book number 1 is gonna be another like very fairy tale fantasy type of a story. This book shocked me how much I loved it. It is almost a 5-star read for me. Spoiler, out of this category, this would be my top choice. You've got a girl who loves this author and she enters into a competition that this author is hosting on his property. And there's just so much like magic and mystery and just fun elements going on. It reminded me of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Plus there's a really cute side romance. It was a short, quick, easy read, and again, it just really surprised me. So if any of that sounds like your type of a book, then choose book number 1. If you're gonna go on a date with this book, you would probably go to a magical theme park. Book number 2 is about some friends that get put in a bit of a predicament where they're being stalked and their lives are being threatened. And you're on a journey with them because you don't know who to trust. You don't know who these people are that want to kill them and why. Basically through the whole book, you're just along for this ride with them. This reminded me of like a 90s horror film, but definitely more like thriller than horror. And if you were gonna go on a date with this book, you would go camping. And the last book in this round is following a woman who is really struggling in life. She's suffered a lot of loss and a lot of question in her life. It's very dramatic and quite sad, but then hope arrives and she starts to struggle with like her faith and struggle with hope and like why things happen and her purpose in it all. It's just a beautiful character-driven story about someone finding hope and a true reason to live. And if you were gonna go on a date with this book, you'd probably go like visit some friends and bring some food and just have like fellowship together. For this round, drop your picks in the comments and let's see which book you're gonna be reading. If you picked book number 1, you're reading The Wishing Game, which makes me so happy for you. Again, I was so surprised how much I enjoyed this book. I honestly did not expect to for some reason, and then I loved it. So I'm very happy for you if you picked this one. If you picked book number 2, you're reading 5 Survive. This was a fun one. I don't think you'll regret reading it. It wasn't my favorite, but I do think that it was enjoyable. And if you picked book number 3, you're going to be reading Up from Dust. This was a biblical fiction retelling and again, just such a beautiful book. I don't think that you'll regret reading this one either. Book number 1 is going to be a very cozy book, but it's going to be very mysterious. You're following a woman who gets to go and live with her favorite author to help her write her next book. But while she's there, someone on the property actually dies. She now is helping to solve this murder. Beyond just the murder premise of this one, there's also some other subplots of this other guy she meets who's being accused of murdering his wife, and she befriends him and is trying to help him also solve that mystery. So there's like multiple things going on in this story. It was so good. I actually can't tell you what I rated it because it's a surprise for a different video, but I do highly recommend this one, and if you like murder mystery, this is a good one. And if you were gonna go on a date with this book, you would definitely go grab a book, grab a cup of coffee, and go to a quaint small town and just enjoy all of the cozy vibes. Book number 2, another really solid choice, guys. If you were to go on a date with this book, you would definitely either go horseback riding or canoeing. This one is about a woman who is a famous musician, and she just needs to get away for a while, and she ends up boarding with a cowboy. And this cowboy just so happens to be a single dad. It's adorable. It is completely swoon-worthy romance. There is some open door scenes in this, so if that is not your thing, do not pick book number 2. But if you don't mind some open door scenes because the characters and the plot are driving the story, then this is a great choice. The setting on this is perfect. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And the last book in this category, you're following a girl who has a very, very unique gift because there's basically a monster living in her head. I'm pretty sure most people at this point immediately know what book I'm talking about, which kind of ruins this game. But if you don't, you're in a world full of magic. It is definitely a darker fantasy book, so if you don't like that, or if you're kind of on the fence on like the dark stuff, then don't pick this book. However, you've got a really swoony love interest again. Definitely some good romantasy mixed into this plot, and just a lot of like mystery and question on like who to trust. Plus, she's got this monster in her head that she's trying to hide from everyone else because they can't know she has like this magic within her. So it's a fun book, and if it sounds like your cup of tea, then choose book number 3. And your date, what the heck would you do for a date? You would go to an exorcism. Just kidding. A monster is gonna decide what you would do with this book for your date. Alright, that is the end of round 4, so make your choice and let's see which book you're going to be reading. If you chose book number 1, you're reading A Dark and Stormy Murder. Yes, this is a cozy mystery. If you completely didn't catch on to that, again, I can't tell you what I rated this one, but I will say that I loved it, and I'm so excited for you if you chose this one. If you chose book number 2, I'm also thrilled for you because you're reading Wild Eyes. This is the newest Elsie Silver book. You definitely need to read Wild Love before you read Wild Eyes, which that's not going to disappoint you either. Again, as long as you don't mind some open door, these books are fantastic love stories and just so good. The setting, the characters, and all of it. I don't know if I already said, but I rated this one like probably 4.5 stars. So it was really good, and I'm very excited for you if you're going to be reading this book. But read Wild Love first. If you chose book number 3, you're gonna be reading One Dark Window. And if you read it, I'd love to know what your thoughts are because I thought a lot of people loved this book. And then I read it with my Patreon, and a lot of people backed out because it was too dark. So tread carefully if you do decide to pick this one up. Definitely some things that could be bothersome, but overall, I enjoyed the journey. I think I am rating this one at like a 3.75. And now for the final round. Book number 1 is about a girl who enters into a competition. However, she's already at a huge disadvantage because she is kind of like the only human one in this competition against others that are more powerful, more beautiful, and all of these things. But the king is looking for his bride, and she doesn't even know why she's in this competition, but she is. This one to me is like a Throne of Glass vibes meets Selection vibes. So if those are your type of a thing, then you should definitely choose book number 1. If you were going to go on a date with this book, I think you would go to a fancy ball, or you would go on an obstacle course. Take your pick. Book number 2 is following a dad who has been estranged from his daughter. You really don't know why up front, but then he gets invited to her wedding and some strange stuff starts happening. He is questioning absolutely everything, but his daughter isn't really listening, and so you're kind of following this whole story of all the time leading up to this very wealthy, very extravagant wedding taking place in this like private area. You're trying to figure out like who to trust, who's crazy. There's some murder mystery, and honestly, this one for me, I enjoyed the first like 50 to 75% so much. I was completely invested. However, the last half of this book, or like the last 25%, took a really crazy turn. There is definitely some trigger warnings, and I just felt like too much occurred. It made it more unbelievable and kind of ruined the book for me, honestly. I really actually can't wait to tell you guys which book this is if you haven't figured it out yet. But if you do like thriller with like mystery and family drama, then this really would be a great choice for you. And if you were going to go on a date with this book, you would obviously go to a really rich wedding and judge everyone for their drama. And the last book in this last category is following a girl who gets invited into this magical college, and it's definitely gonna be like a darker vibes type of a story, but personally I didn't think too dark. Think about Matilda and her mind magic if she was in a school with a bunch of other people like her. And there's, again, some murder and mystery and so many questions. You truly do not know who to trust, who not to trust. There's a love interest that, again, you're kind of back and forth with. I spent this entire book just like, what the heck? Honestly, what the heck? I don't understand what's happening, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that process. And I think that it was a really good book. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, where there's like some very minor monster elements, nothing too crazy though, and again, just like that gothic, dark academia vibes, then this is 100% your type of a book. And if you're gonna go on a date with this book, you would definitely go to a college in the middle of the night and probably not make the best choices. Alright, so drop your picks for this final round and let's see what book you're reading. If you picked book number 1, you will be reading Trial of the Sun Queen. Again, this was a fun one. There was some like really bizarre, cringy open door moments. I don't even want to say full scenes. They were like moments. So be careful with that if you read this book, but otherwise it was a good one and definitely like good for you fantasy lovers. I do hear this series gets better and better. I think I landed at like 4 stars for this one, but that was probably a little bit of a stretch. So if you pick this up, I hope that you enjoy it. If you picked book number 2 and you don't know which book it was yet, it is the last one at the wedding. I am so eager as more people pick this up, because it did just come out, to see what people think of it. If they kind of agree with what I said, that it's so good until the end. I did talk to one friend who felt the same way, but I really haven't seen anyone else actually reading it yet. If you've read it, I would love to know your thoughts below. But if you picked this one, I do hope you enjoyed the journey. I think it will stick with me. It just got frustrating. I wish that it maintained the whole way through how much I was enjoying it to begin with. And if you picked book number 3, you're reading An Academy for Liars. This was so unique. I do not think it will be for everyone because it is very unique. It is kind of dark. There's weird, twisty, turny things, but again, I don't feel like it was too dark. This is probably a 4-star book for me as well, which is now making me realize I didn't actually give out a full 5 stars in all of September or October. A couple books came close, but I just realized I didn't give out a single 5 stars. Anyways though, that's a little bit irrelevant. If you chose this book, again, again, I would love to know if you've read this, if you liked it. I haven't really had anyone to talk to about it. I don't see a lot of people actually reading this one. It is also newer, so if you picked this one, read it. I hope you enjoy it, and then let me know what you think. And that is a wrap on our dating game. I hope you enjoyed this style of wrap up. It was kind of really awkward and hard to do, actually. I don't know. We'll see how this goes if I ever do this version again, but I do hope that you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you have not hit subscribe yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around. I hope that your books are amazing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.